Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. I'm your host, Dorothy Odell, for this evening. Tonight we have a very special guest, and the reason Kimberly is up here at the beginning is because this special guest is actually somebody very special to Kimberly. It is one of her amazing family members, and we just want to say happy Memorial Day to everybody out there. We want to thank all of our veterans for putting their lives on the line for our freedoms. And of course, we want to honor every man and woman out there that has lost their life, whether that be in active duty or to the epidemic of suicide once they transition out. So we just want to really give honor where honor is due. And today I am honored to have Rocky Ballentini on the show today, who is a 24-year military. What's the right word I'm looking for here?
Veteran.
There you go, veteran. But I was going to say, you're not. Yes, veteran. There we go. There's the right word.
He's an active veteran.
Active veteran.
I think that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. So thank you so much, Rocky, for your service. And sorry, I got tongue-tied there a minute. I was trying to think the perfect word. And of course, perfect doesn't exist in my world. So welcome to the show, sir. Thank you for your service. And what's really unique about Rocky is he has now in this civic service part of the military, and which is going when somebody dies in active duty, a Rocky shows up at your doorstep. And so I really just want to, that has got to probably be one of the hardest jobs ever. And I'm not sure how you would do that, but thank you for what you do, sir. And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell us, what made you decide to get into the military to begin with?
Oh, man, that's a long story. So, it all goes back to my brothers, right? So my brother Aldo, my oldest brother, he joined the Air Force, and it was something about the service, right? It just attracted me, right? Ever since I think, that's going back a long time ago. But I think it all started with my family. Aldo, he joined the military. My uncle Melio, he was in the Army too. It's got not a long history of family members in the military, but it's just one of those, I really don't know. I just something I've always wanted to do, and I just jumped, head first, yeah.
What part of the military did you start at?
So I started out as an aircraft mechanic, right? So I was a jet engine mechanic. I've always had a passion for aviation. I still do. I still love aviation. If I could just pick up a civil servant job and be a mechanic or a maintenance manager, I'd probably do it, but it's nothing closer to me. So, but no, I started out in the B-52s, let me backtrack, right? So in high school, I took an aviation technology class, and that really, piqued my interest even more. And so I joined the Air Force as a jet engine mechanic and started out in Louisiana on the B-52s, and then went to Korea for a year. And after Korea, I went to Italy for 7 months, where I met my wife. Weird, right? Military members marrying, foreign nationals at their own location. But hey, that never happens, right? But
no, never.
No, it never happens. So yeah, after Italy, then I got sent to Georgia, and then Georgia, North Carolina, and then Uncle Sam did one last little okie doke to me and sent me to California my last 2 years before I retired. And then we decided to move back to North Carolina for our retirement.
Well, there we go. And that is so hilarious that you met your wife, like you said. But when love strikes, and it doesn't matter if they're civilian or military. It's I don't know. It's half a dozen one or the other. If you marry somebody who's actually in the military, then they get you better. But if not, then it's kind of like a break too when you come home, I guess, in some sense, from what I'm being told anyways, talking to my other veterans. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your service. And so what made you decide to do what you're doing today?
So my mantra, whatever you call it, is veterans help veterans, right? And being a veteran, my passion has always been, even in the military, if I could stay in, I tried to get promoted one last time. It didn't happen. Stars didn't align. And then my wife's like, "You're done. We're retired. This is ridiculous." I'm like, "Okay, fine." But if I could stay in active duty now, I still would, because I love the leading the people. I love mentoring, coaching, the younger folks, right? 'Cause that's our generation, right? Those are nation's leaders, future nation leaders, right? So it's not just about me, it's about these guys, and then how they're going to contribute to our society when we're long gone, right? And so since I can't do that, right, my next best thing is to give back to the veteran community and give back, right? Like I said, veterans help veterans. And before I came into the casualty assistance realm, I was an employment specialist where I help veterans transition out of the military. They call it transition assistance program. And I teach the classes on, hey, here's what to expect when you get out, right? Because I did it for a year. I worked in the civilian sector for a year, and man, I tell you, it's night and day comparison to the military. The standards are different. The chain of command is different. Everything's just, it's just different, right? The pay is different, because instead of getting your tax breaks, man, everything's taxed, because in the military, we may make, say, 55,000 on paper, but all the tax-free benefits end up being like 75 whatever thousand, right? And so when you get out, whatever you make in that pay stub, that's for your tax done, So and then I also did help with resume writing for the folks, because when's the last time they ever written a resume? Some guys are in for 30 years, like, what's a resume? I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit different. Just because you wore that colonel, you had that colonel on your shoulder or that chief stripes in your chest, doesn't mean that's going to correlate 100% into industry. And so I had to kind of, bring it back to reality and say, okay, how do we translate this into what the job description is asking for? You can't say I was a chief of maintenance, because they're like, what does that mean? You have to kind of dial it back to what the civilian terms are, what they're looking for. How do you market yourself, right? And so, doing that, and really gave me joy to help the folks out that, I have a lot of success stories from some folks that got some high paying jobs because of my help with them. And it's just rewarding to help out those veterans to, once they take off that uniform, they still contribute to society because of my help, our help, not my help in general, all together, because we're all a big team at the office, right?
Right.
So we have a big part in the veteran community. And now in the casualty realm, a lot of people say, how do you do it? How do you do it? It's because it is pretty sad, right? When an active duty service member dies, I don't go notify the families, because I'm not a field grade officer, so I will never do that. But I trained a team on doing that process, and we do it all hours of the night. Years ago, it used to be between 12 and 5 in the morning, but now it's all day, every day, because we have the race against social media, and
right.
And so we want to go notify as soon as possible, to do that dignified and humane notification versus them find out via social media. Does it always happen? Not really, because social media is, that information travels at the speed of light. But we do our best, right? And then we always send out a condolence team if they've already been notified, right? And then I go behind and do the benefits and entitlements for the family members and what they're entitled to, right? And so, like a lot of people are like, man, how do you do it? Man, that's gotta be so sad. I'm like, well, it is, but you got to put your emotions behind you. You have that emotional intelligence, right? Have that emotional intelligence to kind of put those emotions behind you and just take care of the family who needs those benefits, right? It could be a spouse who wasn't working, right? And then so now they're relying on their spouse's survivor benefit, and so we try to work that process as soon as we can so we can help out them. It's just really a lot of, yes, it's sad. I've been on the reporting end, because I report all the casualties, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, that's, it feels like I'm there, but I'm not. I'm at the other side of the base doing the reports, at whatever hour of the night. But then it's like, well, what's done is done, right? Can't turn back time. So let's just focus on taking care of those veteran family, right? Like I said, veterans help veterans, and the family members are still veterans in my eyes, right? And so that's what got me into federal service, right? I worked industry for a year, And I liked it. It was nice not having to supervise anybody, just fixing machines. Even though my wife was like, "You're so stupid. Like, why are you going to go be a technician? You got your master's degree, you got this, you got that, and you're going to be a technician?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I like turning wrenches." But then after a while, after
it's kind of calming, right? It's like meditation. Calming. It's like, oh, I'm going to go get paid to meditate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, this is great." And then I found out real quick, my body is like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's manufacturing, so it's a different animal. There's no sitting down for 12 hours. It's standing on your feet. And I got bad back and hips and everything from the service anyways. And I'm like, man, this is terrible. And then about 10 months later, I quit. And I told my wife, like, yeah, you're right.
I was just going to say, she must be just gloating over there going, oh, he probably listened to me.
But I mean, it was cool, right? But it wasn't my calling. My calling is to help out the veteran community, right? That's what I'm passionate about, the veterans. Because, like I tell people, man, these employers worldwide, they want veterans, right? But how do they get those jobs? It's through people like myself and my team to help translate those skills, because it's a different ballgame. Right. I mean, we teach them about networking. That's huge, too, because when I was an employment specialist, there's like 90% of jobs are through networking, and like over 85-90% of HR are on LinkedIn. Yeah. And so, just help them understand those new concepts. They've always known about, hey, I know my chief, I'm going to get this job. OK, yeah, great. Here you go. So I ain't like that out there. You have to apply. And if you don't network, your resume is going to go in the bottom of the batch.
Yeah.
And then they may not get you, But if you know someone, you get your resume, like, oh yeah, I know Rocky. Yeah, okay, we'll put them up at the top. We'll get them an interview. Yeah. It's stuff like that. It's real simple stuff, right? But they don't know it, right? Because they're so institutionalized, myself included, right? Institutionalized on the military process, and it's just over time you promote into these jobs, but it ain't like that out there. But yeah,
that's you said that the networking piece, because I just had a conversation with one of my sales guys in my day job 2 weeks ago. I'm like, how are you using LinkedIn and to get more customers for our company? And he goes, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, so in other words, you're upset because we have this excess produce, but who are you reaching out to? Do you know anything about veteran produce? And he looked at me and goes, how do you know about this stuff? I'm like, well, funny. I network like crazy. And so, I love the fact that you brought that up, even within the military, because I know lots of guys that are now veterans looking for a job, second career, have no idea where to even begin. And I'm like, you guys have some of the top leadership skills in the world. Like, there should be no reason why you don't have a job. But, and I get it's putting the military, you're so used to, Uncle Sam tells you to do it this way. And now you're out on your own. Like, how do I pivot? And so that's where you find Rocky, and Rocky will help you pivot.
Right. And it's difficult, right? Because our job titles are something that industry has no clue. Right. And they're like, well, we want to hire you, but I don't understand what this is. So you're an NCOIC. What is that? And even if the people in the industry are veterans, it doesn't necessarily mean they understand what NCOIC means, because they may be Navy, they may be Army, Marines, and every industry has their own speak. And so is the military. Air Force speaks different than Marines. Marines speaks different than Navy.
Oh,
maybe.
Yes.
But Marines and Navy they're in the same branch, right? Or the same. I don't want to offend anybody, the Marines and Navy, but they're under the same department. Is what I mean. Right. Air Force. Everybody speaks different, right? And so just because there's a veteran in your organization doesn't necessarily mean he understands what you do, because they all speak different, right? Or even under the same organization, the same department, like Air Force to Air Force, they may be in a completely different career field. And so you're speaking something that they don't understand. Like, I don't get it, So it's just one of those. You just have to, one, network, do those informational interviews, and say, hey, what are they looking for? And two, sit down and read the job description and say, does that align with what I do? Okay, yeah, that's what my job title is. I'm an operations manager, not a flight chief, or so it's one of those. It's tough, right? It's a tough transition, and that's where that's where we come in. Especially the veterans, they listen to us a little bit more. I mean, not dogging our civilian employees that never served, right? But they look at the veterans a little bit higher, right? Because we they respect us a little bit better, the veterans, and then the service members, and the veterans, right? They'll look at us like, oh, okay, yeah. But they still do a pretty good job of listening to us,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? But it's just one of those things you just have to adapt, right?
Right.
You have to adapt, or you're going to lose.
100%. And so, with what you do you already? How can somebody get a hold of you then to help them get a job? Like, do they get to you just be like in that 2-week process where they're transitioning, or can they come back to you afterwards and say, "Hey, Rocky, I need help getting a job" afterwards?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, when I was a transition specialist, they would, they're mandated by law to come and do a transition assistance program, because it's the why behind the transition assistance program is because one, years ago they had a real bad, not real bad, but the statistics were high with unemployment for veterans, homelessness, and of course suicide, right? Because they can't adapt to the industry, the real world. Let's say real world, but yeah, right? So what's that?
The world back home.
Yeah, the world back home. Yeah, the other world. Yeah. So they're mandated by Congress, right, to come see us and do the transition assistance program. But when they separate and when they retire, they can always come back, right? As long as they have an ID card to get on the installation, they can come seek help anytime they want. Even if they don't have a military ID, I know veterans, as long as you have a veteran card, right? Now I think they changed the rule a while ago. You can get your VA card, right? And it gets you on the base, and you can get some. You can shop at the commissaries, stuff like that. As long as you get that VA card. So as long as you got some type of identification to get on the base, we'll help you. We're not going to turn you away. At least I won't, right? Because veterans help veterans, right? So, but there's 100%. Other organizations out there that'll help them, not just the base. You got those workforce development centers. They do a lot to veterans too, but they like to come on the installation because they feel at home, right? And then because it's home for some. Now you get some veterans like, man, I don't want to step one foot in base ever. And there's some guys that are like 30 years and they'll come see me like, yeah, I haven't been on base 30 years. Like, I had no intention of coming on base ever. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but yeah, but I mean, yeah, we'll help them out, right? As long as they got the proper identification to come on base, we'll help them all day, every day. Same with spouses, right? Military spouses, we're big on those folks too, because we understand, even our what do you call it? Our leaders of the Hill, right? They understand the power and the experience our military spouses bring to the table too, and so we advocate hard for the military spouses too. There's lots of different programs and many different programs and grants and scholarships for military spouses to get the education that they may be lacking, and experience. And then there's these giant job boards that are these employers are looking specifically for military spouses. And so it's not just military members, right? We help out the whole veteran community, which is spouses, children, family members included, right?
So that's interesting. So if I know somebody who's not in the area that you're currently at, can I still connect you with them to get them the help they need? Or do they have to be in your area?
No, they don't have to be in our area, but it does help, right? It does help because we like to do face-to-face.
Right.
But I've helped out some folks before. They've lived in San Antonio, Texas, and they email me their resume, and I'm like, okay, yeah, here you go, right? And then I'll send them their edits, and they'll be good to go. But I mean, if they want to, they could. I mean, I'm not an employment specialist anymore, so it's kind of out of my realm, right? I'm a casualty, So, right. But I would still refer them to the person that does it. Right.
I was going to say, Rocky, isn't it national? I mean, the benefit that the team that does that work, that's everywhere in America.
Just about. So as long as they got a military ID or a VA card, they can go to any military installation and get the help, because any active duty military installation is going to have a what they call a family readiness center. So we got a military family readiness center. The Army's got their same ones. The Marines got their something similar. The Navy's got something similar. The Army's got something similar. And so they'll always have employment specialists, right? Even some of the guard bases, the reserve bases, they have something similar too. You just have to do some research and call and make an appointment.
And Rocky, you were saying too, it's actually by law they have to report to that, right? When they come back from duty.
So when it's by law, they're required to go through the transition systems before they get out of the military.
Right.
But when they get out, they don't have to do. I mean,
they don't have to. So the beauty of this public service announcement on Memorial Day, right? No, I got you, D. I got you, D. Is that, hey, all you beautiful. And I'm very emotional about the show for a lot of different reasons. So if there's crying, just ignore it. It's all tears. Good tears.
It's just Kimberly.
Right? Well, the creation of today's show, really was inside of, it's a combination of all the work that Dorothy and I have been doing for the last 3+ years for our insane love for the military. And for each and every one of you that have, and your family members and your spouse, like the life you've chosen so we can be free. It's just like, it literally takes my breath away. And, getting the privilege of having the people in my life, like Rocky, who are literally, like, he's my cousin, but he's really my brother. I got to grow up with him. Like literally, he and Tony were, they are my soul brothers. Like they're the brothers that God gave me. And so there's just so much emotion in this show. Because part of what Dorothy and I have so been on purpose with is loving back the military, loving back that family that we have known. We wouldn't have what we have today if it wasn't for y'all. And really starting to set right the relationship between the military and, us, whatever we're called, civilians, I guess. Civilians. Right? I just like, guys, me. I'm not a label girl, right?
Allies.
Right? I can't remember people's names, let alone labels, right? But the ability to provide for the military, is Dee and I wake up, with them and a handful of others, like Native American Indians is another one, right? Like that, where you're just like, we wouldn't have what we have if it weren't for these communities of people. And so, being able to have unexpectedly, right? Like I was so inside of the, hey, people, this is what Memorial Day really is, right? Like if we can transform, and wake people up to what Memorial Day is about, right? And this is the added bonus, right? Is Rocky getting to share about this component and having the military be aware, like, hey, that transition program, like people like Rocky are in it and they got your back and they're really there to, transition you back home in a healthy way. And you may have come out of your duty going, goodbye, see ya. I want nothing to do with you.
And a lot
right? And this component, run to it. Like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You really want to, lock in on this piece that Rocky's making us all aware of tonight.
But yeah, like I said, it's not just a military base. You can go get help, right? They got veteran service centers that do, same thing. Really, they'll help you find a job. There's workforce development centers all around the place that give priority to veterans. Like I say, in my TAP workshop, those workforce development centers are all across the nation, right? American Job Centers is what they're called, right? And they're everywhere. Every county, every city has one. And as an added bonus, as a veteran, you get priority when you walk in or sign in. And so if there's 50 people in a lobby and you sign as a veteran, guess what? You go to the top of the line. And so you don't have to go find a military base to find help, right? You go to those American Job Centers and then, hey, I'm a veteran because, hey, Scott, I did my time, you did your time. Doesn't matter if you have to be at least 180 days, right? You did your time, right? It doesn't matter if you did a year or 180 days or 30, right? You're a veteran. It doesn't matter. And you sign in and boom. And they take that to heart, right? Because that's the big thing on the Hill's eyes is veteran employment, right? And because it's important, right? We had those, like Dorothy was saying, we got those skills. But we got to translate them, of course, on our resume. Unfortunately, we can't just submit our military performance report. Like, what is all this acronyms? I don't understand this stuff because the military reports, if you've never seen one, it's like written in code. But we can't put that in code. But we got those skills, right? We got those leadership skills. We got those management skills. We got the emotional intelligence. At least some of us do. Not all. Some are really rough around the edges, and I'll let you know. And emotional intelligence is what? No.
Well, that goes for civilians too, Rocky. So
that's 100%.
That's a human condition.
Yeah, that's. I've seen people get fired in meetings before. I'm like, man, this is rough. But yeah, they're everywhere, right? And that's the big thing. These employers want veterans, but these job centers, the military family readiness centers and stuff like that, right? These other agencies will do our best to help translate it so you can get a job and contribute to society, right. Contribute to the economy.
I am really glad that we're having this conversation because a lot of the veterans that I speak with, they're like, oh yeah, it's a 2-week course and then we're just like thrown out and then we got to go home and deal with all this shit. And I don't know. I'm really glad that you came on to say, wait a minute, no, it's more than that.
It's all what you put into it, right? It's all what you put into it. Like I tell people, it's like, I get it. We read from a script-ish. We throw our own spin on it. I throw my own spin. I used to throw my own spin on it, but it's like everything in life, man. You go through high school, it sucks, It's all what you put into it, right? It's all what you put into it is what you gain from it, right? And I tell you, I was not a stellar student in high school, to say the least, right? I was terrible, absolutely terrible. My mom will tell you this. My mom will tell you stories, and she could probably write a book on it. I'm telling you, it's probably New York Times bestseller of how bad I was in high school. Absolutely terrible. But, because my drive was to go in the military to fix the airplanes, I didn't need government. I didn't need economics. I didn't care about algebra. All I was going to do is fix airplanes. And I was already in. I did my enlistment. I was waiting to graduate and go. But, as I got older, I found out real quick that, man, I'm a dumbass. I should have studied more, and then here I am. I finished my master's at like age 44. I get in the military, and I'm trying to go for next promotion. Like, hey, you got to go to college. I'm like, what? College? Man, I barely got out of high school. College. And so I took this one class, and I was like, okay, I had to take a class to put up my performance report. Like, hey, he went to school. Okay, cool. So I got the promotion. Didn't take any classes until later on. Way later on, like 10 years later, until I got put in a position to lead people, right? And my boss was like, hey, how far are you to get your associate's degree? It's like the military associate's degree. Like all of it. He's like, well, he's like, you got to get it done, or we're going to find someone to replace you because it's a promotable position. You have to have this degree. I'm like, damn it, right? So he's like, you're going to go to school during lunch. I'm like, what lunch? I don't get a lunch. Like, oh, I'm going to make you a lunch. I'm like, all right, well, bet, right? Like a lot of the younger guys say bet, but, and then I found out real quick and how important education was to my job, right? Because, everything I'm learning, my undergrad was in management, right? And then I took everything and I can apply it to work. I'm like, man, I should have done this a long freaking time ago. And then when I got my master's, that the VA paid for, by the way, so another one of those added benefits that were hint, get that GI Bill, use it, right? Anyways, and I'm taking that, and then everything aligns. I mean, I don't know. It's funny how education, it sucks, right? I get it. Nobody likes to do it. It's not my favorite thing to do on a Saturday or Sunday, but man, I tell you what, it makes you so much better as an employee, but not necessarily just an employee, but as a human being, right? You learn all those skills. My leadership, I learned so much more about leadership in those 10 classes in my master's I did in my time in the military, because military leadership is different than civilian leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't just go, so like, hey, do this, and this
Because
in the civilian sector, because you might get HR saying you can't do this, and this, like, oh, sorry. Okay. But yeah, I was never a stellar student, right? But over time, I found out how quick, real quick, how important the education is, and that's why I'm trying to ingrain on my kids, and especially the veterans too that haven't had any education. Like, man, at least get out with this associate's degree, and a lot of guys, they're like, "Well, that's just a military associate degree; it doesn't do anything." I'm like, "Yeah, it does, man. It's a degree." And the other person that's applying for a job doesn't have one. Guess what? They look at you a little higher because you show that that shows them that, okay, he can critically think, he can write, maybe, maybe enough to get by, I guess, right? Chat GPT possibly, but but yeah, I mean, you set a goal, and you made it, right? And so they look at that as, oh, okay, so he could be a good asset because he worked and he got a degree. And so, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's not for everybody, I get, but I tell you what, it's important. If I'd have turned back time, I would have probably studied a little bit more and not focus on sports. But then again, maybe if I'd have gone to college and not the military, I wouldn't be where I am or who I am today, right? So I don't. Nobody has a crystal ball in front of us.
Never look back at the rearview mirror.
If I'd have turned back time, I should have done this. I'd have been this. How do you don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, everything happens for a reason. A lot of people say that, right? And God's plan for everybody, right? Everything happened for a reason. So I'm assuming this. I sucked at high school, and this is the reason, because this, this is the reason of what happened, right? If I'd have gone to school, college afterwards, what would my life be like? I don't know.
Yeah,
nobody would know.
Rocky. Now the thing too, though, is you can talk to people to your very point, right?
Right.
You can say, hey, I did this, and this was what happened. So you can be that wise counsel.
Yeah.
To the next generation.
I tell them that too. It's like, listen, man, I get it. School's not for everybody, but at least go learn a trade. Go to community college and learn a trade. Because I tell you what, man, I can tell people that trades are a dying breed, and those tradesmen, tradeswomen, right? They make just as much, if not more, than those CEOs at a 20-story building, and they're working pretty hard for that money, right? But I tell you what, they make some good money for a lot less education those MBAs have at the top of the tower. But not discrediting those guys, of course, right? But I mean, everybody has their own future or what they want to do, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, it's important, and that's what we're here to kind of educate them on their benefits, right? GI Bill and so on. Even for my family members that I talk for their benefits entitlements, right? If the service member died on active duty and he's got, say, a spouse and children, well, as long as they determine their death in the line of duty, then they get, essentially, the family members would get that free education from the VA. And I've talked to a couple kids, right, and they're still using it. And I mean, it's terrible what happened to their mom or dad, but I tell you what, those benefits, will definitely helps, right?
So I have a question, because this has come up on several different shows with veterans. What is a GI Bill for us civilians that have no clue? What does that mean?
GI Bill is a Montgomery GI Bill. It's GI, right? Government issue, I suppose. I think it's what it means. But anyway, the GI Bill it's essentially a scholarship.
Okay.
Paid by the VA. And so the GI Bill, you have to, when you join the military, you have to elect for the GI Bill, and you pay for a year, like a premium, right? I can't remember. I did it when I was younger. I can't remember. Maybe it was like $200 a month. I think what I paid for a year, right? And then that's all you pay. And then you get out of the military, and then they will pay And even while you're in too, you can do was it chapter 32? I started doing my master's when I was enlisted. And so I did a GI Bill top up, which is tuition assistance to the military. And of course, the master's a little bit more than what the tuition assistance would pay, and then GI Bill paid the rest. But when folks get out of the military, they use that GI Bill and they get 36 months of 36 months of tuition, of education. And it's not 36 months like, okay, I'm gonna start school today. I only got 36 months. It's not concurrent, right? So it depends on how long your classes. So if your classes are 8 weeks long, well, 36 months minus 2 months, now you got 34 months left. And you take you take a year off, you still got 34 months left, right? So it's not like, 36 months, I only got 3 years to use it. No, it's 3 years of academic calendar.
Oh, that's interesting. And it's funny because a lot of people that I talk to that have enlisted, I'm like, what made you decide to get into the military? And they're like, free education.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's fair because education ain't cheap, right? Although it's very widespread compared to what it was back in the, late 80s, early 90s. They're just all brick and mortar schools, right? But now you're talking, there's just you can look on online schools online on the Google, right? On the Google search engine, and there's probably a million freaking online schools compared to what there was back in the late 80s, 90s, right? Just brick and mortar. Now there's so many out there, but it's fair. I didn't join for education, right?
Well, to me,
my first story, but but yeah, it's I joined to serve. I joined to fix airplanes, and I joined to travel the world, which I did. I went around the world twice, essentially, pretty much, but yeah, that's fair. Education, because like I said, it's not cheap. And a lot of people, they just want to do their 4 years and get out, which is okay too. Get out, take that 4 years, and go to college.
Right. Absolutely. So since this is Memorial Day, and we had a conversation prior to us recording this conversation, because I always feel weird about saying Happy Memorial Day, especially as a civilian that's never served. What is your take on that, sir?
So as we talked a little bit before, a little pregame, right? So I get it, right? It does seem odd when people say, "Hey, Happy Memorial Day." Like, what is so happy about it, right? And that's the $1 million question, right? What is so happy about it, right? But if you look at it, I'm probably gonna ruffle some feathers. I don't know, whatever. It is what it is, right? But this is my opinion, right? Everyone's got their own opinion, which is a great thing about America, right? We have our own opinions. We got our own free speech and all that good stuff, right? Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, Happy Memorial Day, in my eyes, right? Okay. It's not happy, right? But it's not happy. It's weird, right? It's not happy because today is a day of this weekend, this Monday is a day of memoriam, right? To remember those who came before us, those who served and gave their life. You're going back, you're talking like hundreds of thousands, if not a million people have died in the line of duty since the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, to the Gulf War, to Vietnam, South Korea, not South Korea, but Korea, but so it's sad, right? But in a different light, right? It's happy because it's a happy, thankful, happy.
Like a gratitude.
Correct. Yeah, there you go.
Appreciation.
Right. So it's happy in a context where we're gracious, we're appreciative for those who came before us to allow us to have these barbecues on this weekend, to allow us to go to the beach and bask in the sun and swim in the ocean or just to sit at home and watch TV all day, so it's happy in a way that we're thankful that those soldiers, those airmen, those Marines, say everybody that came before us, or even civilians that died over in the overseas in fight of our country, to allow us to have these freedom of speech, have our own opinions without getting schwacked, by someone coming to our front door like, hey, you said that, okay, like in some of those communist countries, right? They might do that, right? But here in America, we don't do that because those soldiers, those people came before us, they fought They died on the line of duty to protect those rights, right? To protect our rights, to give us the freedom to smoke a brisket this weekend, like I plan on doing, right? So I'm just like everybody else, right? I'm gonna do the same thing. I got a brisket sitting in the fridge, and I'll be cooking that thing probably tomorrow. Why? Because the people that came for us, those soldiers, those airmen that died in the line of duty in those wars, all the way back in the French Revolutionary, the Civil War, to give us the opportunity to be able to take off 3 days, right? So yes, it could be construed as like, what is so happy about it? Well, let's look at it a different line. Let's look at a different lens, right? Yes, it's not happy because people died. We don't want people to die, but they did that for our freedom, for our rights, right? It's just like Easter, right? Let's go back to the Bible, right? Happy Easter. What's so happy about it? Jesus died on the cross. Well, he did that to take away our sins, and this, that, and the other, right? So look at it that way too. We say Happy Easter. What's so happy about it? He was crucified. He was executed. Same thing for Memorial Day. Why is it so happy? Well, why is it so happy? Because all these millions of soldiers died. Well, they did that for us to, for our rights to have those to have a 3 day weekend, go to the beach, take off 3 days to just relax and recover and come back to work the next day or whatever you want to do. Right. Or maybe it's and like for this year, I'm going to start a new tradition. If my kids want to do it with me, I don't know if they probably will because they won't get up on time. But I'm gonna start going to the veterans cemetery, just to walk around. I mean, I don't know anybody, but I probably do know some people because I see I've helped out several family members of deceased retirees, and then I know they're buried in that cemetery. And so, I mean, it's not happy, but at least take a few minutes of your time just to just reflect, right? And express a little bit of gratitude that this is why we have this 3 day weekend, and then go celebrate.
Rock, I love what you just literally create. Like that could become imagine that going viral. Imagine people I get it. This is going to be on Monday night, Memorial Day weekend, Monday night, right? So we're sharing this possibility with you, at the end of the weekend, and every day can be Memorial Day, right? And then potentially planning for next year. That is that could be something super cool. We got a whole year to plan it, right? We could actually plan, and create a revolution of people going to veteran, cemeteries to love on. Because that was part of a big thing. I was in preparing for the show. It's how can we help, and really the whole, how can we help people be with people, family members, right? That have lost people on active duty. How can we be, instrumental in communicating effectively with those people and, loving on them, caring for them, helping them with their transition so that, and giving people that, I know every human on the planet is always giving their best abilities every single day. We wake up how we're wired is to be that way, right? And sometimes our best isn't always our best, and that has way more to do with we don't have, to your point, we don't have the skills, we don't have the emotional intelligence, we don't know what we don't know. So that was, first of all, freaking brilliant, mic drop. Yeah, hey, it's as simple as driving to the veteran cemetery with roses and hand out 12 roses, right?
Yeah, you can, or
whatever.
I'm just gonna just walk around and then get in my vehicle and leave, right? Because that's all the veterans want is just one day, right? It's one day, come visit me, and say thanks, right? And that's it. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, right? I know some military friends of mine, they get up in their uniform, they go there. First of all, I can't fit my uniform from when I was active duty, so I'm not going to do that.
Well,
I don't do
Rocky.
PT tests anymore, so I still work out, but I don't have to, stay thin anymore, So, but yeah, I mean, it's just something as simple as that, right? I remember my mom, right, and her dad. He wasn't a veteran, right, but she would always drive to Harlan, Iowa, and we did it last year and do it this year because we're planning a trip to Europe this in the next 3 weeks. So I didn't really, I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time other than the vacation we're taking on, right? But every Memorial Day, she'd drive from Des Moines to Harlan to go visit her mom and dad, right? They're buried right up there in Harlan, Iowa Cemetery. We went there last year. I came home and I'm like, you know what? I didn't think about it. My mom didn't think about it, but like, hey, you know what? It's Memorial Day. Let's pick her up from the nursing home or from the house, and let's go drive up there. It took her a while to get up, get out of the car. But, she was thankful that she was able to see her mom and dad. She hadn't seen them so long, but she used to always make an attempt. One day a year, it's always Memorial Day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a veteran, right? But the Memorial Day is primarily for veterans, right? And those active duty retirees and stuff like that, folks like that, right? But nothing says you can't go Memorial Day visit someone that you love, right?
Yeah.
And that's what my mom did, right? She did that for years, and she'd always throw me in a car with her. And even though against my will, when I was a kid, she'd always throw me in there, and we would always go to Harlan.
You're so hard done by, Rocky, I swear.
I'm like, I don't want to go to Harlan, but I did it, and at the time, I didn't really think of anything. I thought like it was like a bird, like I just lost my whole day driving to Harlan and then coming back. I'm like, this is ridiculous, But
and now you're thankful for that, though.
Right,
See,
well,
kids,
yeah.
when you're
Thanks,
listening
Mom.
to this, thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, we learn at different stages in life, right? And that's one of my fundamentals is learning, right? We learn.
Great segue, man. You went right into your fundamentals. Beautiful slide. Nice.
So learning, right? We're always we should all be in a state of continuous learning, right? Whether it be when I was a kid, my mom threw me in a car on a Memorial Day weekend when I could have my 3 days to go play video games and go ride my bikes with my friends. I'm like, this sucks. This my whole day is gone. But as we get older, we learn from those experiences, and then we eventually go back against we essentially go against what we believed then now, right? And so when I came home on Memorial Day weekend, just to make a quick visit, a quick turn and burn, and I thought back when I was a kid, I'm like, you know what? This would be great for my mom. Let's go hop in the car and go to Harlan. Even though knowing that, I mean, I hated it when I was a kid because I had no idea the importance of it. Now when I get older, I'm like, that's actually pretty important to my mom, so we should probably give back. And
Rocky, I love now that you're going from Des Moines to Harlan. Now you're going from North Carolina
to
Des Moines to Harlan. Des Moines to Harlan was nothing back then.
All right. Yeah. So it was kind of funny. I was like, when I was a kid, I'm like, man, this is a horrible idea. I don't want this. This is I get older in my 40s, I'm like, it's actually. And then even though now it's like I want to go to a veteran cemetery on Monday with my kids, they probably want to go. I'll go by myself, and I was like, I'm like going back again against my wishes when I was a kid. I'm like, man, but we learn, right? And it's a continuous. We should always be learning from those experiences, learning from our mistakes, learning from our accomplishments.
Learn from your mom. Throw your kids in the car. You're doing.
I was going to say you don't
get
them a favor.
Like
you don't get the choice.
Get in,
just
go, let's go.
Do it.
But those days were I wasn't exactly happy. But on the way back, we stopped at Nichols Diner, and that's where my mom used to work at when she was a kid, and we ate there. I'm like, okay, it's all good now.
Yeah, just follow Donna's lead, man. She's a great lead. She was a great leader. She still is, right?
Right. Yeah. It's funny you brought that up, right? And so a lot of people think leaders are like military leaders or government leaders, but you got those informal leaders too, like your parents, right? And I tell you what, you learn a lot. And I was a kid, I didn't want to admit to it. Like, man, they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And I was always arguing with them, like, you don't know. Now I'm 45 years old. I'm like, shit. Like,
They
yeah.
do. They do.
Yeah. Karma.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's just
talking to
not a
my
Taylor
kids,
Swift song.
and I'm still having the same conversations with my kids, and I'm like, damn, man, it's like this is going way back. Like, I'm talking the same thing about them as though they were talking to me about my dad always getting me about my grades, my mom getting me about my grades. And I'm like, oh my God. But here I am, I got a freaking master's degree. And I'm like, I don't know how that happened. But
so always be learning. Got it. What's number 2?
What did I put? Coaching. So coaching, mentoring, they kind of go hand in hand, right? But they're two different, right? And I learned that through my master's program. A lot of people think coaching is mentoring, but it's not, right? Mentoring is important, right? Coaching is just important, if not more, right? Because you're giving those people that you're coaching their make their own decisions, right? Okay, what did you learn from this mistake? What did you learn from this last experience? Like, oh yeah, I did this, and that, right? So it helps them think about, where they want to go and how to improve it, right? Mentoring is also important, right? You're mentoring, you put someone underneath your wing, and they're going to follow you through a project or through a process, But coaching is a little bit different, right? And I'm really big on coaching. I don't necessarily like to, I don't spoon feed. Right. And I don't do it to my kids either. Right. So they have an assignment to do. I mean, my daughter had an assignment on ethics, and one of my classes, I took several ethics classes. Oh my God. Yeah, rough. But anyways, so she's talking to me about ethics. She's like, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I'll help you. Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm sitting here in my recliner watching TV, and she's sitting next to me, and she's like, well, I'm like, well, what? I'm like, well, are you going to do it? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I was like, we're gonna walk through it. So give me a question, and I'll help you answer it. And so we got through it, right? She got her presentation, and she did it. But I mean, that's part of, you learn from that way, right? Could I have done it for her? 100%, right? But she learned from it? No. And and mentoring similar to that, right? So I'm gonna do it, and you're gonna watch me do it, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. But coaching, like I did with her, different, right? But you're like, okay, so what do you think? This is what it is. So what do you think this point is? So like, oh, okay. And so I do that with like a lot of the veterans, right? When I do transition assistance, I'm like, okay, what do you want to do when you get out? I could say, hey, based off of your assessment, this is what I think you should do. But what do you want to do, right? Go back and self-reflect. What do you want to do? Do you want to turn wrenches anymore, like I did? I don't know. Or do you want to give back to the veteran community? Okay. Or do you want to do something completely different, right? Coaching, right? Sitting there and just having a conversation with people and help guide them where they want to go with questions, and let them answer it, right? Mm-hmm. Let them make that determination of what they want to do, or what they thought they did wrong, or what they did right, and learn from it. Because I could tell them 100% what they did wrong, what they did right, but they're not going to learn from it.
It won't make any difference.
No. And so, I mean, I've had in my experience in the military where, they're like, hey, you're going to be an investigator for this piece of equipment that got damaged. Okay, fine. All right. I did it, and I'm done. What? Because I was so good at it, right? They want me to keep doing it for the other ones. I'm like, no. One of my bosses told me a long time ago, like, hey, Rocky, you need to pick another guy. You need to pick a guy to do this investigation. So I picked a guy, same rank as me, but outranked him to lead this investigation, because I felt that he needed some development, right? He needed a challenge. He needed to learn, right? Whether he failed or he succeeded, he needed to at least try, And so I picked his name, and he's a little bit on the gun shy, the gun shy lane, right? But and my chief came back like, why'd you pick him? He's not good talking to commanders. He's just gonna agree with the commanders and this and that. And I'm me being the dummy, and I open up my mouth, right, to my chief, and I'm much younger. I'm like, well, that's where you come in. That's where you come in to coach him and mentor him. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. I'm like, isn't that your job?
Yeah.
to coach this guy and to mentor him. I mean, if he at the end of every day of an investigation, you come back and you bring him in your office. And say, okay, what do we do today? What did you do today? Okay, what about think of it like this? Kind of throw out different questions because your experience, as much as I am, of course, he's the chief and I'm a younger guy, right? So I don't really have a dog in the fight. But that's where the coaching comes in, right? It's come back and say, okay, maybe think about asking this question, or maybe think of it this way, or what else could you have done better? What other questions could you have asked based off of this, and this, and then, you learn from that. Much more than mentoring. Now, mentoring, like I said, they're both important.
Yeah,
they're both important.
They're definitely both important. And when you agree, Rocky, like the coaching piece, right, is like if you have a coach and you're not free, you don't feel free, right, to like be at your highest level. Like, don't get wrapped up in that. Like, find the Goldilocks coach for you, right? Like, to your point, right? It's like different personalities respond to different types of coaching.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, personality. I mean, to be a coach, you definitely have to be very self-aware and socially aware of yourself and of course others and their personalities, because you can't go in guns a-blazing with somebody who is, for example, I got the colors right, a blue, right? Someone who's really big on relationships, right? Who's kind of gun shy, kind of shy, not very outspoken, right? So if you go in guns a-blazing, like you're gonna shut them down, right? And so the other fundamental, right, adaptability, you have to learn to adapt to other people's personality. Right. You have to, I mean, it's true though. I mean, you have to be able to adapt. And that's really my big thing on leadership. I feel as though I'm like, a lot of my classes, it's a way to sit down and like kind of write about, okay, what kind of leader are you? Right. Well, I think I'm more like an adaptive leader. Right. And that's one of leadership styles, adaptive leadership, because you have to adapt to your surroundings. You have to adapt to your people to get them to work and to get them to motivate to get the job done for whatever job it is, right? You can't just go in there and say, we're going to do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. False. Can't do that. Times change. Every day the world evolves. Every day the people evolve and perspectives evolve and social media evolves, right?
Technology.
So you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt. You can't just say, this is the way it's always been done. I hate that. I hate it. That's like nails on chalkboard when I hear that. It's the way it's always been done. Shut up. But I mean, when it comes to like coaching people, right, you have to adapt to your direct reports' personality. And that's where it comes into like understanding your people, right? Get to know your people. They're people, they're not machines, right? They all have emotions. They all are human beings, right? They all react differently. We're not all wired the same. If we were, I don't know, it'd be like Terminator, right? I don't know, it'd be like Machines, Johnny Number 5. You remember that movie, Short Circuit?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you got to adapt, right? You can't just go in there. It's like, this is how I'm going to coach, right? I'm going to delegate this to you, not knowing that you don't know anything, right? And we're not going to set you up for failure, right? So you have to adapt to the people's personalities, right? And you have to understand their skills and knowledge, right? Their capabilities, right? You have to adapt to the capabilities. Can't just go, go ahead and do this. And then you're like, what?
So glad.
I mean, you gotta adapt, man. And like, I'm really big on adaptive, adaptive leadership. Because I came in to my when I was an employment specialist, and they're always using paper. We use so much paper at this place, right? And like, I swear I could. We kill trees all the time. It's ridiculous. Like, man, in the paperless world, like, why don't we just get away from this paper and make, for example, those survey machines online, right? Make a QR code, make 4 or 5 of those things on the table. When you get done with the class, scan it, take the survey, and it makes all cool graphs and stuff like that, right? It gives you all the data right there. But they're still, we got a lot of baby boomers, right? Nothing against those folks, right? But they're not willing to adapt to the new way of the world, right? Social media, new way of processes. And then we got younger folks like me come in like, no, man, get rid of this paper. This is stupid, this is so much less efficient and effective. But I don't just go into cold turkey. It's like, we're going to change it. I'm going to sit down and explain here's why, right? Here's the why we should do it. Because it's all of our customers have cell phones. And even these survivors, right? These survivors, these widows I talk with, right? They're like in their late 80s and they have a smartphone too. So if they have a smartphone, chances are our younger population military, they have a smartphone too. So why not adapt to their way of communication and get rid of paper and make QR codes? And so they did it, right? And so we did it, and it works a lot better. Of course, I'm like the only person that does it. They always ask me for help, so I kind of open up a can of worms on a self-inflicted wound. I'm like, everybody calls me and like, even though I'm in casualty, right? So I still help them out. And they're like, hey, can you create a QR code for this? I'm like, oh my God, man, here's how you do it. But
well, that's what's so beautiful about your fundamentals, Rocky. In a nutshell, right? Is they actually bleed into each other, right? So the adaptability, if people aren't adapting, then there is to learn something, and there is to be coached and or mentored by someone, so that adaptability then becomes possible.
Yeah, it's a revolving, it's a continuous loop.
Yeah, and it can go forwards or backwards, and
and that's where like the learning and adaptability and coaching. That's like dealing with the folks that I've dealt with before. I'm a younger one in the group, we got some folks that have been in for civil service for 20 some years, coming up in retirement, and so that's where reverse mentoring comes in. You've probably heard of that before, right? That's key.
It is key.
The younger folks, I think what was it? GE first started it. Who was it at the time? Jack Welch. Yeah. So he started the whole reverse mentoring, right? Bring the younger group with the older group, and they came out with this awesome product, and everything worked like a well-oiled machine. And so I kind of like that style too, because in civil service and even in the industry, you're going to have some older folks that have been there for a while and they don't want to change, but it takes you, the leader, to sit down and say, okay, this is why, and this is how we're going to adapt to using social media or using QR codes, right? You can't just go in our cold turkey and say, change it.
Yeah. Well, even smartphones for that matter. Right.
They're going to freak people out, and they're going to, one, they're going to quit, which you just lost all that experience. And and two, you're going to create, dynamics in the work center. And it's just, you have to communicate, right? You have to coach them. You have to mentor them.
And love them.
And you have to allow them to adapt, right? And learn the new ways of doing things that are more efficient and effective and less, much more cost effective. Because paper, we had a paper shortage a while during the pandemic, I use paper a lot in my job for casualty, which I'm not too fond on, and there's really no way of changing the process because everything will be wet signed. Can't do digitally signatures because everything will be wet, same with notaries, right? Notaries, you can do the digital, but it's a little bit trickier.
DocuSign.
They're a little bit signatures. They're a little bit trickier, but everything's got to be wet signed. I'm like, oh my God, it drives me freaking crazy because I'm really big on changing processes, right? I got my black belt and the process improvement, and I love changing process for the better to make it more efficient. But like in this job, I was like, damn, man. You're talking like casualty assistance, benefits and entitlements. They want wet signatures, and all I do wet signatures, got to use paper. I'm like, ugh.
Rocky, we want you to know that you have changed the processes for people on this show today around Memorial Day and memoriams, and it has been our distinct privilege. It's hard to believe we're already over time.
Weird. I have that problem, I end up talking a lot too much, and they tell me a lot at work too, like, Rocky, you talk too much. Like,
You talked perfectly. You talked perfectly.
Yes,
Okay?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you so much for coming on, Rocky. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and seeing how, if one little shift in a mindset can change everything,
Mhm.
especially when you're transitioning out. I love that you gave us these tools. So the next time I hear a veteran, I'm going to be like, oh, wait a minute, you do have the services. Here's what you need to go do. And so thank you for that. I absolutely love that. And you're right. I'm challenging everybody out there today on Memorial Day. Because it's not about barbecue and beer, to do something different and to honor a service member. And I know I had posted on social media up until today about a walk that was happening in Bloomington, Illinois, where one of my Marine veterans who lost a buddy in Hawaii 9 years ago gets on his rucksack and his Marine flag. His name is Michael Parker, and he walked 16.1 miles in honor of his buddy. And he's added names on his rucksack each year of active duty guys that have either been killed or has lost their battle once they get home due to suicide. So next year I am teaming up with Michael, and since it will be the 10th anniversary of Josh's death, we are going to make it bigger, better, and better. And we are going to make sure that people remember who Josh is, and and all the men and women that have passed away while in duty or when they got home. And so if I know this show airs at 7:00 at night, so if you have not done anything today in honor of Memorial Day, even going to the Legion and having a drink and listening to a veteran, whatever you got to do, just go do something right now. It takes 5-10 minutes.
Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. Exactly. Yeah. But next year, I have Michael's permission to join forces with Michael, and we are going to be honoring in a different way. And as Kimberly knows, I don't do anything half-assed or small. So I can just imagine how this is going to grow. So I encourage you, thank a service member. I know sometimes they'll say, oh, it's nothing. And like I said to Michael the other day, he says, I don't like it when somebody thanks me for my service on Memorial Day, because it's not about him. I said, but it is, because you are honoring those men and women that have gone before you, and they live inside of you. So I got to change his mentality about that. So thank a service member or their family, even, because I know they are the unsung heroes at home. I've heard that a lot in the 3 years that we've been partnering with them. And so again, Rocky, thank you for your service. Mm-hmm. Thank you for all that you do for our veterans, and they're transitioning out. And so I will definitely make sure that what you told us today is brought forward to everybody else, and so that they get the help that they need to, get a job once they're out of the military. And that's another step in our helping the men and women get over this epidemic of the suicides that we have within the military veterans, because if they have the hope and they're working and they're doing stuff like that, they're not going to be in their PTSD and in their heads and all of that. So thank you for bringing that element to today, especially today. And we just thank you so much. And thank you, Kimberly, for bringing Rocky to us here. And absolutely love you guys. And with that, guys, have a great rest of your Memorial Day, and stay tuned, because we will get you more information as it unfolds for next year on the big, I guess, celebration that we'll be having next year. So with that, guys, be unstoppable in all that you do, and same time, same channel next week. Oh, before we go though, Kimberly, we had an episode with Kimberly a couple weeks ago where she's doing the El Camino in a couple weeks here, and there is still time to give to the forgiveness wave, to start that there. And part of the forgiveness, if you didn't see that episode, go to our YouTube channel and go look right now. And so there's still time to donate, and we would appreciate it if you could do that. And so go to this website right now and go donate. And we can't wait for Kimberly to come back at the end of June and tell us how that trip went. So, guys, with all that, be unstoppable in all that you do. And same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.